everybody. I'm Jenny, also known as TopKpop, and I am here from EOS is Very Cool. Today, I am here with Dallas from Credify. Hello.
Hello.
You look like you're in a wonderful place right now. You have an awesome backdrop. I love it. Nice Sunday,
Thank
huh?
you. Yeah, so we're hailing essentially from Windsor, England, where the famous Windsor Castle is, and they recently had the royal wedding. It's a beautiful day, out sort of enjoying it, riding around the countryside.
Oh, that is such a good way to spend a Sunday.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So this is going to be introducing you, well, through my channel anyways,
Hmm.
to the EOS community more so. And I have a couple of questions. I know you got them in advance, but we'll
Hmm.
go through them and I guess listen to your answers with them and people can get to know you
Excellent.
more. Awesome.
Excellent.
So the very first question I always ask is if you could introduce yourself to the viewers and of course your dApp.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm Dallas Johnston. I live in Japan, in Tokyo, Japan. I've been there for on and off for 15 years in the technology space. I originally went to Japan to do some embedded systems development, was hired by Symbian, and then worked with Symbian out of England, and then also with Nokia out of Tampere and Helsinki, Finland. And then I went back to the US to join a startup that we managed to do quite well with. We went public and then sold the company to Apple. And then I joined another startup after that in the biometric space. It's kind of my background. So identity verification, user verification systems. And then also we did well with that company as well. Yeah, so we sold the company to Synaptics. I don't know if you're familiar with who Synaptics is. Essentially, all of the touch technology in the world essentially is Synaptics technology. So, and then after that, I took quite a bit of time to sort of travel the world and to study languages. So, for example, I went to Beijing, and yeah, I went to Beijing Normal University to study Mandarin. I'm also I'm a linguist, so I enjoy learning other languages as well. Then I was introduced to blockchain technology through some study that I was doing in finance and computational finance. And then, yeah, really started to think about, sort of the implications for blockchain technology and for DLT to disrupt the world, not just finance. Of course, finance is, one of the first applications for it that people see with regards to sort of disintermediation of these, the transactional entities and whatnot. But I saw and was exposed to Ethereum quite early on. So this concept of this, smart contracts, and I saw really the possibility for smart contract environments and these micropayment capabilities to disrupt, things such as, infrastructure as a service, so AWS and all of these things going forward are really going to be disrupted by this stuff. So it's pretty exciting. And then I began to develop a marketplace for the Japan market that was focused on handy people services, because strangely enough, that didn't exist in Japan. As you know, in the US, you have like it's Porch now, but it used to be Angie's List, where you could hire people to come in and do handy person work. So I started to develop that system, and in that process of developing, I sort of ran into this idea or this concept of, well, what if we used blockchain to enable transactional counterparties to sort of vouch for the reputation of each other? And then I did a lot of research in the space and came to understand that the existing sort of reputation systems are really fundamentally broken, just due to the gameability of them, due to just misaligned interests with regards to like the platforms that are attempting to, sell advertising, for example, in this as a service. So, coming into that space, I was really excited about the possibility of blockchain to, sort of really disrupt and change this system for the better. And yeah, that was sort of all born out of my experience with doing the development for this marketplace. And then through that process, I began to sort of realize that, it's much bigger than just marketplaces, right? So this whole concept of counterparty reputation or this transactional counterparty credibility has much broader implications and applications. So, for example, microfinance is a great application for this. Right now, for example, in microfinance, the average interest rate for a loan in the space is 35% annual. Yeah,
Oh,
which is massive, right?
yeah.
And if we can, and well, there are several reasons for that. And it's not necessarily that the entities that are providing the loans, it's not as if they're just loan sharks, right? But it's because there are costs associated with the distribution of the loan, but also the collection. And there are several entities that's sort of sit in the middle of this process as well. And it's if we can do something with blockchain and with Credify to even reduce that those interest payments, let's say by 5 points, then it's going to have a significant impact on the industry. And this is why I was in Bangalore last week, or the week, I guess, early last week, to talk with Professor Muhammad Yunus about the potential for Credify in that type of an environment.
Wow. That was an awesome background. And you kind of already answered question number 2 for the most case as well, because I was asking why did you come up with this idea?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that was pretty darn thorough.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm familiar with the Angie's List, well, what it was, and uh, even with like Amazon reviews and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. There's that need to verify and know that people aren't really gaming the system. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, and even as recent as 2000, late 2017, Amazon came out with a report saying that the false review or the fake reviews have just they've gotten worse than ever, essentially. So and there are reasons for this, right? You can sort of understand that if when we're dealing with human produced opinion data in a textual format, really what, for example, I can take neural nets and I can train them on Yelp data, and I can actually produce human indistinguishable reviews. So that's a
Wow.
problem, right? Because if you're
Yeah.
trying to combat these systems, like with ML, for example, but then you have ML on the other side, it becomes an arms race. And it's really impossible to sort of address these fundamental problems with the rate and review system through that mechanism. So that's really why the power of Credify comes in.
Wow. Okay. So, currently then, what stage of development are you currently at? Like, and on top of that, what does the next couple of timeline items look like?
Yeah. So so we just recently released the technical white paper for the protocol. That was a quite an endeavor. We have a contributor from Imperial College. He's a PhD student there. He's actually an advisor to the FCA here on their smart contract regulation. And he had some significant insights as well as after he came in to contribute to it. So it delayed it a little bit. But we've also got test components or prototype components running on testnet. We have sort of simplified demos and stuff running, but by way of the sort of milestone, the next stage. So right now I have an application that I developed, which is eventually going to be our wallet application. Yeah, we've developed this application for registration and review, a referral that we're looking to sort of tap the influencer markets, essentially. So people who are in the space that have influence, that have a lot of
Oh,
followers, they will be allowed to come in at an early stage and get a Credify ID, and then they will be able to share a referral link for registration into the system. So this whole application has been developed, and then so the next step for that is we're integrating KYC capabilities into it, so it can be more sort of a wallet. And then the next stage for that, the next milestone for that application itself as well, it will be the ability to vouch for counterparties in non-transactional marketplaces like Craigslist, for example, because Craigslist and these other classified ads markets, for example, like we're in talks with Kaidi, in Thailand, who are the number one. They're the number one classified ads marketplace there. They have clearly said that they have issues with fraud, significant issues with fraud that they're trying to address through various measures that are expensive and just very resource intensive for them. So when I introduced the concept of Credify, they're very interested, but we do have a lot of work ahead of us because we need to figure out, as every sort of blockchain solution as well is going to be running into this when you're a sort of an end user facing solution, that this has to be done in just a dead simple, very, very simplified way. The average person needs to be able to interface to the system, or you're just not going to get the level of adoption that you need to be a successful product. So it's really cool to get the feedback from these guys because, for example, in the example of Kaidi, they have a really interesting story because they were able to essentially win the Thai market because they had cracked the nut with regards to simplification. Because the average Thai person is not that technically oriented, and these complex interfaces and whatnot. So the other entrants or other companies tried to enter the market and failed, but they were successful because they just figured out the right formula for simplicity. So we're getting the feedback in that regard, trying to understand how can we just make this so simple and just so transparent for people to where it's just second nature at some point for them to credify someone.
There. Wow. Yeah, you said a couple of things that spoke directly to what I think when it comes to dApps and how they need to be, because it is going to be all about the end user, and in most
That's right.
cases, it's an average end user, and if it's too complicated, it's not going to work.
That's right.
It's simple. So
Exactly.
I love that thought. And do you happen to know? If you don't, it's good. But
Okay.
do you happen to know kind of approximate time frame with some of those next steps?
Oh yeah. So I mean, for example, like KYC integration. Well, actually, I should say that the first step. So right now we have the application. It's interfacing to a database backend, and we're in the process of getting that ported over to our Credify ID. So that's like the first step. The Credify ID is pretty complex because it's a federated ID system to where we're taking these disparate sources of ID and sort of forming this one unified ID that helps to give a strong signal as to the actual identification of the individuals that are participating. And then we're also integrating the KYC component in there so that they've come and shown a state issued ID and it's been verified. And then also attaching, for example, SMS and so that that it's their phone number. So we're just trying to take all these steps to get people strongly verified in the system, because that really forms the basis of trust, right, in a trust network. So yeah, we're doing that right now, and then we're integrating KYC, and so we should be finished with that in about a month and a half, and then we will have full wallet capabilities within 2.5 months. And then we should have vouching, my guess is end of this year, because the vouching component is the most complex. That there's a lot of thought, a lot of consideration that has to go into the architecture of that. But we are, moving quite quickly. For example, we have an IPFS gateway up, and we've got the smart contracts running on testnet, and just the development is just moving forward. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you have a good, nice, like strong timeline coming up. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
my background is engineering, so I'm driving this company from that perspective, which is hard too, because we're also in sort of like in a fundraising process right now, and it's dividing my time between engineering resources and traveling and trying to get people interested in the project and to come in at an early stage.
Well, fair enough. I mean, it still sounds like it's progressing a lot, even with you having to, kind of split your time. But wow,
Yeah, that comes down to a good team.
fair
Certainly.
enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
And I know this question wasn't on there, but how big is your team currently, approximately?
Yeah, so it's myself, and I have a co-founder who's focused more on the finances side, and then we have a full-time blockchain engineer in Japan, and a full-time full stack engineer. I'm also myself doing the engineering, and then we have a team that we're looking to bring up. in either Vietnam or Sri Lanka. So that will be quite soon.
Oh, very cool. Okay. Very cool. So when an average end user,
Hmm.
what do they need in order to use the dApp? That obviously you're not fully there yet, but like in terms of
Yeah.
like EOS wise, bandwidth, accounts, CPU, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So right now, with it's a because at its core, it's a very simple protocol. Um, so how they would interface it, interface to the system would be either, through our application, if it were to be on these transactionless marketplaces, or if we do get traction with a marketplace, then they would interface to the system
Hmm.
through the traditional sort of account interfaces that they have on their systems. Um, and so by way of required resources for, the let's say, so in our system we have, the ID component, and then we've got the event component, and then we have the vouching component. So the ID component is of course this federated ID concept where we are storing encrypted, personalized and, personally identifiable information in IPFS, which is hashed into the smart contract, so that we can, ensure that it's not been tampered with,
Hmm.
and then that forms a strong basis, reference for the person's ID. That component itself doesn't really take too much because it's just simply hashes. And then we have an event system where when entities engage, through a marketplace or through our app to vouch, and then, eventually express results, and then the reward or the penalization happens. So this component, what we're doing is we're storing event data as well on IPFS, and then hashing that into the smart contract, which is, you're going to see that this is kind of a theme
Hmm.
with a lot of the dApps going forward, because of, for example, the RAM costs and, things that are just associated with storing data on chain. So I think that, yeah, you're going to sort of see going forward that there's going to be a trend in that direction. And as well, even in the Ethereum space, real dApps, real, or applications that are looking to utilize blockchain, a lot of them they are having to store their data off chain, and a lot of
Hmm.
times in a distributed fashion. They're trying to do it through IPFS or through the other, like, storage protocol or Filecoin or whatnot.
Very interesting. Okay. Okay,
Did
yeah,
that
there's a
answer
lot
your
of
question?
facets. It does. There's a lot
Okay.
of different facets. That's a good way to explain it.
Yeah, it's
But
true.
wow, okay. Well, that makes things a little easier for us because you're like, you know what, maybe sometimes we don't have to worry about it as an end user anyways. Um,
Right.
so that's a good thing. Now, I mean, you've already been talking about the one kind of little entity that you were working with or
Mhm.
talking about working with. Are there any other existing businesses that you're trying to switch over, have your eyes on, or anything?
Yeah, again, so we're really early stage. We
Mhm.
started in January, and I've been really, leaning down on the development side, but we're just now getting into our fundraising efforts and activities. So it's, pulling a lot of focus there. But I'm also trying to, as much as possible, strategize and put the connections in place, for engagement with marketplaces, for example, or with in the microfinance space. So this is a perfect example of why I was having discussions with Professor Yunus, was that, we want to get a good understanding, first of all, of what sort of players in the microfinance space that he thinks would be good fits for us, just given, like, maturity of the platform, and just, how accommodating they may be, because some of them may not be as accommodating, just simply because of lack of resources, right? So it's really finding a good fit from that perspective. My CFO does have pretty strong connections in the space, so we will be looking to tap that going forward as well. So I unfortunately I can't come and say, yeah, we're already talking with all of these places, but one of our advisors as well, I can point to, is he's senior global marketing manager for Rakuten, and I don't know if you're familiar with who Rakuten are, but they're essentially the Amazon of Southeast Asia. So
Oh wow.
they're a massive conglomerate. They've expanded significantly through Southeast Asia through just M&A. And of course, we're looking to potentially get into that space through that connection.
Ooh, okay. So yeah, you do have your eyes on a few things, and like you said, you're early, so I
Yes, that's
mean,
right.
it makes sense. But I like that you're doing all your research and yeah, getting all of that done. And I mean, I had another question, but you've
Uh
kind of been answering it. So
huh.
I mean, then I guess my last one's kind of a free for all, which
Okay.
is there anything else you're working on as well that you'd like to share, or anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share, pretty much?
Okay. Let me think. Yeah, some of the things that we're considering is partnerships with the block producers, for example, or engaging with the EOS community in a sort of a stronger capacity. Admittedly, until now, we haven't really been doing a lot of marketing, so our Telegram is not very active, and it's just simply because we're really focused on building the business at this point. So yeah, but I think going forward, you're probably going to see more, of course, engagement in those spaces. So yeah,
Fantastic.
I look forward to all of your users are welcome to come join our Telegram and ask any question you want. It's a 24-hour AMA. I'll be available to answer
24
anything.
hours, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
You never know. Someone might get on there and be like, "Hey, it's like 4 in the morning over here. Are you up?"
Well, we have other people that are in as well, so they
Fair
can ask
enough.
questions.
Smart, right? It's like I can't be up all the time. But I will say I did look through. I mean, it was earlier we were talking about it, but I did look through that white paper. I
Okay.
admittedly did not read the entire thing because it's
Yeah, it's a bit
jam packed.
long.
But it's fantastic looking. Like it is a fantastic looking and reading white paper. I will admit.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
yeah, well, you're welcome. So you could tell you and the guy you helped work on it that it was awesome. Telegram wise, I will be putting that in a post because I do a post on this.
Okay.
But man, like this was a really interesting interview from the backdrop just to like all the information and what you guys have been going forward is a lot. So the fact that you took it on is very, very interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited. I'm really really excited about the potential for Credify to have impact in micro lending. That's something that really excites me. But even beyond that, in the e-commerce space, there's just a lot of fraud. There's a lot of
Hmm.
gaming that happens. People are wronged in these systems, and this is why Adrian Ashley, who's also one of our advisors, it took her 5 minutes to agree to come and join this project because she has been in the space for 10 years and she knows exactly what happens to businesses that have been wronged by the algorithms or have been attacked by competitors or whatnot. So she really fundamentally understands sort of the value proposition that Credify brings, and that's something I'm really excited about as well, so that we can get in there in like Craigslist scenario or
Hmm.
Craigslist environment, and all of a sudden now you can have strongly identified counterparties in Craigslist, and you can click on their Credify ID and you could go and see their history of transactions, and you can
Cool.
see if they've been successful or not in that. And what that really does is it enables us to form a profile of a business that was not possible before, because one of the issues with the rate and review system is that the ratio of rate and review to transaction is actually very minimal. And not only is it minimal, but if you've experienced something bad with a business, or if you've had a bad experience, you're 54% more likely to share that than a good experience. So there's a natural skew to the negative in that data, right?
Hmm.
So that's for smaller businesses. They don't have a lot of money to go in and to invest in their reputation online. So what we want is what we're trying to do is enable them through just simply doing their business by just engaging in the services that they're providing, or whatever they're selling, to be able to generate a profile that anyone could come and click on and see, and say, yeah, look, these guys they've executed, they're doing excellently, so I can trust them.
Oh, absolutely. Like I love the different use cases for it with the micro lending and even the e-commerce because as a normal person here, I've used things like Craigslist and I've actually stopped using it because you
Yeah.
have
Oh,
to worry
really?
about fraud, you have to worry about safety, you have to worry about all this stuff of meeting someone you don't
Certainly.
necessarily know. And yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
absolutely.
Even last year, I was in Seattle, and so I had like an extended stay in Seattle, and I tried to go through Craigslist to find something, for extended stay there, And I had to go through 10 entities before I found a legitimate one. So they're
Mm.
all like, well, you need to, give us a deposit and we'll send you the key and all this, it's a complete scam. And,
Oh, yeah.
and it's just, it's so prevalent on those systems because of the lack of strong identity and this inability to really understand their credibility, as an entity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Okay. Well, I have to thank you for taking the time and even pulling over on the side of the road. Well, I know you stopped by a pub, so we'll say to
Yes.
enjoy some
So
time.
I have to say, cheers from London.
There you go. Yes, lucky you. Again, it's too early for me to have a beer, but
Yeah, it's perfect
I,
time on a Sunday for us. So
yeah, exactly. And like I said, a beautiful backdrop. So I thank you for stopping and taking the time to do this interview. And I'm so excited to share this with everybody. And I'm sure there will be more people kind of coming your way and asking definitely more about you guys for sure.
yeah, and thank you, Jenny, and I love what TopKpop's doing, and I just keep going because we're gonna change the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful. So I'm going to say goodbye then. Thank
All
you
right,
very much. And yeah, I'm sure I'll talk to you very soon as well.
okay.